Never thought I'd make another one of these again. When I made that year in review for 2020, a part of me never wanted to make another one. It's why I didn't make one for 2021, despite a lot coming out. My mental health got ultra low that year, and that broke my productivity in half. It also explains why I only played 3 of the... how many games were there? I don't know. I only played Metroid Dread, Bowser's Fury, and Clubhouse games, though I did get into Psychonauts 2 in 2022, and plan to play Resident Evil Village one of these days. But let's get into 2022 proper. I played a bunch this time, and a lot of it in December. But better late than never, right? Quick disclaimer, I'll just talk about the new games for this video, and a few games with DLC or new content, remake here and there. But we're not going to talk about any straight ports like Nier Automata on Switch, for example. And of course, I haven't heard of every game this year, let alone play, so go into the comments if I missed anything, or talk about your favorites and why Elden Ring is the greatest thing to ever exist this year. Oh, I also want to talk about some movies that came out this year that I've actually watched. It was a time when I could actually go to the theaters again, and you know, I want to talk about these every once in a while too. But enough stalling, let's get this started. And you know 2022 was a banger when Hotel Transylvania Transformania starts off the year. Actually no, we're going to talk about Smiling Friends on Adult Swim instead. God, this might be one of the funniest cartoons I've seen. It is insanely dark and absurdly chaotic, but honestly my favorite bits were when they were just talking about random shit. If you haven't watched it yet, please, it's only a couple of hours long, you won't be wasting too much of your time. Also, the Brazil special is probably the most I've laughed in a long time. Seriously. There were a few games a lot of people were talking about, but I kinda just forgot or didn't care much for one reason or another. Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel was a game I heard a lot of people talk about, but I'm not big into Yu-Gi-Oh! Only watched the original anime back in the day, and the card game was a little too complicated for me. Windjammers 2 looked fun, but I don't play many multiplayer-focused games, so that went into the wayside. There was, Needy Streamer Overload? What the fuck? Okay, I'm gonna stop beating around the bush here. Pokemon Legends Arceus was the best Pokemon game I've played since Black and White. I love Pokemon, but I've kinda lapsed over time since 2014, with Pokemon White being completely forgettable despite putting 400 hours into it. Senior year of high school was a pain in the ass. I tried getting into Alpha Sapphire and Moon, but I just kinda got bored with them, and I never even bothered with Sword and Shield, the Let's Go games, or the Gen 4 remakes. But for some reason this game actually grabbed me, probably thanks to the change of pace with the open world structure, or maybe it's the fact that it was a sort of origin story or whatever, playing into the past to capture and study Pokemon for the first time. Not sure how I feel about the protagonist of Diamond and Pearl being forced into the past thanks to Arceus. Could have been more interesting to have a person of that time period, but you kinda get over it over time. I do enjoy the story past that, however. Most of the characters were based on existing characters from Diamond and Pearl, implying a shared ancestry. Like Agata is basically Cynthia but old, and Celine is just Cyrus if he had a sex change. And also a personality. At least Arezu was a much better Mars. I will absolutely die for her, she is precious. I like that Rita and Adaman's relationship, and the tribes they lead had some pretty great characters with really compelling arcs. The only exception was this dipshit. Melly was completely unlikable throughout the entire chapter he was in, and he never got any better past that. Such an arrogant little bitch. If he got killed by a lightning strike, I would laugh at his corpse and piss on it. At least he didn't get on my nerves as much thanks to Ingo bouncing off him. Yeah, that Ingo from Black and White, who's just here for whatever reason. But hey, I like Black and White, so I'll take it. It's actually kind of cool how they don't just pull from Sinnoh in terms of characters and Pokemon. Even got regional forms of Pokemon from Unova and Kalos. That's actually kind of neat. Overall, this whole game is actually kind of neat. Capturing Pokemon has never been this addictive, and the battles with the noble Pokemon is something I hope later games incorporate, because the idea of humans fighting against Pokemon is just brilliant. Reminds me of the part in Gale of Darkness where you don't fight the fucking robot. That was a super lame moment. But yeah, great game all around. Now on to February, which Elden Ring is my game of the year. I'm sorry if you were expecting anything different. Look, I know this is going to be a very cliche answer for a lot of people, but I'm not ashamed to be cliche every once in a while. I don't talk about it much, but I love From Software's hyper-challenging adventures. Well, I only played Dark Souls and Demon Souls. I'm majorly behind, but I love my time with them, and I was getting Elden Ring day one. Except the copy I ordered got lost in the mail and I decided to get it digitally a week later. That was absolutely annoying, but hey, once I got my hands on it, I loved it by the first 10 minutes of gameplay. The addition of Torrent was great for quick travel, plus avoiding groups that took me out. The bosses were an absolute joy to take down as well, especially when you get the ability to summon wolves and jellyfish, and you could even summon NPCs, which is actually kind of neat. The lore was also something I enjoyed about these games. The dark, brooding atmosphere complementing just the gorgeous visuals just lulls me into a concentrative trance. Yeah, one of these days I just have to talk about these games, but don't think a couple of 100 subs is nearly enough of a milestone for such a project. Get me the 6 figures and we'll go from there. Past that, didn't really play anything else that month. Ollie Ollie World looked neat, same with Sifu and Grapple Dog. Didn't get to play the original Horizon yet, so I just skipped the sequel for the time being. And Martha is Dead is a horror game that has been on my radar, but I still have no idea if it's a game that's worth purchasing or not, so decided to hold off for now. Oh, the results of the Uncharted movie, the first movie I watched this year, and wow, was it a bad start to my personal return to theaters. Talk about boring. I don't feel like actually watching it again on Netflix. It was just such a boring movie. Sorry, Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg, you really missed the ball here. The last thing to note for this month was the Cuphead show, a cartoon I watched for 2 to 3 episodes, and yeah, it was also kind of boring. It's beautifully animated, and some of the voice acting was absolutely phenomenal, especially with the Devil and King dice. But the stories were just kind of meandering and not very interesting. It's just not a good show. Don't watch it. March was a pretty busy month. On the movie end, there was the Batman from WB as well as Turning Red from Pixar. Turning Red was okay. A little cringy, but I did get into it when the emotional core and the big action scene kicked in. When it came to the Batman though, whew! It does start off really slow and certainly had its cheesier moments. Then again though, the older I get, the more ridiculous a man wearing a bat suit gets. Or maybe it's because it's live action and it's trying to take itself way too seriously. It's been a while since I watched the earlier movies, so I don't know. Speaking of which though, Robert Pattinson was okay. Not my personal favorite Batman. Then again, no one's gonna beat Michael Keaton or Kevin Conroy, rest in peace. But at least Pattinson had some strong performances, and the Riddler was just beyond disturbing, especially with the large social media outreach. That hits a bit close to home. Love living in America. Good movie though. Highly recommend it for the intense action, the bad visual puns the Riddler makes. Oh my god, those were disgustingly dark. I love it. As for the video games, there was a ton this month, and of course I couldn't get to all of them. I still haven't found a reason to go bankrupt on a VR headset, so Moss 2 was off the table. Triangle Strategy had a fun demo, never got into the actual game proper, or there was just way too many RPGs grabbing my attention. Kind of the same reason with Strangers of Paradise, though I still have no idea how I'd feel about the game to this day. Didn't get into Gran Turismo 7 or Chocobo GP, though the last one I didn't see a lot of kind things about, so I let that one be. Babylon's Fall, certainly exists. Oh, I'm sorry, it certainly existed. Square Enix really went completely mad throughout this year. Just too much crap they kept pulling with quick cash grabs and blockchain horseshit, and I'm still upset at that Terra statue. Can I just have a cheaper, smaller statue, please? That would be very nice. I want that statue. Lastly, Tunic looked cute, but as a fan of not Zelda, I didn't really care for it, sorry to say. Maybe I'll check it out later, who knows. The 2 games I did play were Ghostwire Tokyo and Kirby and the Forgotten Land, though not in that order. I got Kirby the month of, and it was a good, cozy time. A few Kirby games aren't. A lot of people are calling this one of the best games of the year, and while I enjoyed my time with it, I don't think I can go quite that far. The bosses were actually pretty fun, didn't really expect that. The music was solid as always, and the Waddle Dee system is perfect for replayability. But aside from the jump to 3D, plus the adorably creative mouthful mode, it's not unlike any other Kirby game. Hell, the level tropes are about as tropey as Return to Dreamland or the GBA games. Not saying they're bad, quite the contrary. But they aren't blowing people's minds is what I'm saying, unless you're not branching out. And if I may give you a game to branch out with, may I suggest Ghostwire Tokyo? Too big of a shift? Okay, fair enough, that was a bad segue. Anyway, when I saw this game for the first time, it kind of reminded me of a more paranormal take on BioShock. And yeah, that's kind of what I got. Doesn't really focus on the plasmids over time, and you don't really get firearms unless you count a magical crossbow in that category. You also don't fight against anything like splicers or big daddies, but more so yokai creepier than the last. Though like big daddies, kind of, you get some yokai that are actually a little more docile, like these tengu that you can grapple into the sky, and the Nekomata shopkeepers. I love these little dudes, they're freaking adorable. The combat is fun, if a bit on the simple side, and the two characters you're with are a good dose of fun, though I'll keep who they are a secret. I do want more people to play this game, and it did kind of get swept under the rug despite the ties with Bethesda. Though then again, this really wasn't Bethesda. I can't remember the studio off the top of my head, but it doesn't really matter. This was a really great game. I really recommend it. It does go on sale often, so get it when you still can. April and May kind of blew. The only big titles were an updated port of a PS1 game, a remake of a fun, obscure SNES game, Postal 4, sure. Demon Turf got a sequel DLC. It's separate from Steam, so I guess it's supposed to be a sequel. Whatever it is, Demon Turf is fun. I highly recommend it if you want a 3D platformer with a high number of skills to play around with. If you like Mario 64, you'll really like this one. And May literally had Pac-Man Museum Plus, and the only new thing that had was a very shallow arcade designer. Only great thing I found about it was the fact that characters can get stuck in your VIP room. I made a VIP room. Movies were the more prevalent part of the 2 months. I watched Sonic 2 and The Bad Guys for April, and I watched Chip 'n Dale and Top Gun Maverick for May. The Sonic 2 movie was way more exciting than the first movie was, though that's really not saying much considering I didn't like the first one. It's way more adventure-packed, the humor hit better, and the emotional core with Tails and Knuckles really hit more than Tom and Maddie did for the original movie, though they were kind of okay this go-around. Not a fan of the wedding portions with Rachel and her fiancé Randall. I'm absolutely surprised that I remember their names. Though I did like the fact that it was basically a play from Gun, mostly because it had the best bit in the entire movie. And the climax was just perfect. Loved every second of it. And you know, I kind of rolled my eyes at the post-credits scene, but I'm still kind of excited for what they do for Sonic 3. However, if I don't see Metal Sonic in Sonic 3, I will riot in the theater. And then there was The Bad Guys from DreamWorks. Didn't watch this until it hit Netflix, but it was just so much fun, thanks to the main 2 characters. Everyone else is great, well, except for the villain, but it didn't feel like they were trying to hide it, so whatever. But the entire journey with Wolf, Snake, and the other gang members is just a lot of fun. The heists are tense, the amount of squash and stretch makes the comedy stand out, while the use of action lines intensifies every moment. And for May, I thought the Chip 'n Dale movie was a little trippy, kind of like Roger Rabbit if Roger was high on cocaine. Not exactly a good movie, but it was a fun time if you come into it blind. Top Gun Maverick was amazing though, absolutely a sequel worth the wait. I thought there was already a sequel, but I guess I was only thinking of the video games. God, there's a lot of them. But as much as I love the first movie, this one just blows that one out of the water, with a pretty strong connection with Bradshaw's son, as well as teaching the rest of the squad for a singly difficult mission. Definitely in my top 3 movies of the year, it soared with flying colors, pun intended. I heavily recommend it, though it's only available on the elusive Paramount Plus, so that kinda sucks, but you know, that's just a minor setback. Also, what the hell is with the inconsistent aspect ratios? This is so distracting, it's kind of my only problem with the film, like what the hell were they thinking? Also, I didn't watch Doctor Strange 2 because I didn't watch any MCU movie aside from the first Iron Man. I know I'm very behind, but I also heard it was kind of bad, so you know, that was also a factor. Okay, leave it to my birth month to pick up the slack. Only movies of note were Jurassic Park Domination, which you really don't need to watch any of the Jurassic Park movies past the first one, and Lightyear, which from what I heard is a complete waste of time, especially with the twist I spoiled myself with, and I really didn't like that, so I refused to give it the time of day. But hey, at least Lightyear wasn't the biggest disappointment of the month. Mario Strikers Battle League was ruined by live service bullshit. Nintendo really needs to quit with that shit. Actually, the entire industry needs to quit with that shit. Soldiers was a nice indie Metroidvania, but God was it pretty unstable on Switch, with a lot of micro freezes. But yeah, no, that was kind of distracting. Reminds me of another Metroidvania in that respect. Also, playing as a silent nobody instead of the main characters kinda sucked. Leaves any form of the story feel empty as a result. TMNT Shredder's Revenge was a great beat 'em up, but it felt a little on the basic side that was enhanced by the TMNT fan service. I didn't play Card Shark or Neon White, but everything I see of them looked really fun. But the best part of the month was just DLC. Cuphead the Delicious Last Course was genuinely incredible, with you having to get ingredients for Chef Saltbaker to make a cookie that can help him conquer the world, revive Miss Chalice. Yeah, the plot, like the original game, ain't winning awards for storytelling, but it's still rather witty, and besides, the boss fights are still the meat and potatoes of the game. Still heart-wrenching when you're so damn close to taking the boss down, and overly satisfying when you finally beat them after 2 hours. At least none of them are worse than Dr. Call. That bastard deserved death. I never played with Miss Chalice though. A double jump and dash parry didn't feel right from the tutorial, though she could have been perfect for the parry challenges. These were pretty brutal with Cuphead or Mugman, but it's not unbearable. July was weird. 2 movies I never watched for 2 completely different reasons. Didn't watch Thor because I haven't caught up on Marvel in the slightest, and Rise of Gru because it's Minions and I'd rather hang myself than watch it. Apparently there was a Kung Fu Panda show that came out, and it's apparently the 3rd Kung Fu Panda show. I'm surprised there's so much Kung Fu Panda, but I'll just stick to the movies. Hoping for the best for Kung Fu Panda 4. The Resident Evil show kind of blew from what I remember, and I'm very much not in the mood to revisit to see if that's the case. But enough of that, 4 games this time on the list, and while I didn't get to the Klonoa collection, it's not like I missed much. I really loved the first one when I played it a few years ago, so I tried to get it just to try the second game out eventually. I played Stray thanks to PlayStation Plus, and I liked it pretty okay. I liked the dystopian world, the characters are fun to interact with, and the little parasite blobs were really fucking disturbing, but I don't know. The idea of being a cat is fun on paper, but the novelty kinda wore off before the 2-hour mark, and the world design got a little cluttered over time. Thankfully it's not a long game to make it unbearable, but it's nowhere near the best indie game I've played this year. Live Alive was a lovely little remake. I only played the Wild West and Edo Japan chapters so far, but I've enjoyed my time with both, even if I wish the Wild West chapter lasted a little while longer. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 was also another RPG I played through not too long ago. 2 RPGs at the same time. Great idea, me. I only got through 2 to 3 hours, but this might be the second best game of the year. It had absolutely no chance of beating Elden Ring, obviously, but just about everything about this game was just amazing. Noah, Uni, and Lance quickly became some of my favorite characters in the series, even if they feel a little much like Shulk, Fiora, and Ryan Rollrise. And damn, Riku's voice was deeper than I was expecting. Holy shit. The story is just wonderful, and I nearly teared up by the end of my first session. And from what I heard, I think it's going to be a lot more emotional. And thankfully, it looks like it isn't ultra anime waifu smut like the second game. Ugh, if you want to masturbate, just find a website, not a video game, you fucking perps. August had a few games I was interested in, only played a couple of games, and the only movie I recognized was the TMNT movie from the current TV show. I actually need to give that show a watch before I actually give the movie a shot though. Sparkly Electric Jester 3 and Kirby's Dream Buffet were games I thought about playing, but didn't get to them for financial reasons. In fact, the 2 games I did play I got super recently, because from July to November I was getting tight with money. That's what being forced to buy a new car will do to you. The indie game for the month was Frogun, and I knew about this game thanks to Sage, the Sonic Amateur Gaming Expo. That's becoming less Sonic focused the longer it exists. It's a puzzle platformer with a graphical style similar to the PlayStation era, a style that's slowly getting a resurgence, which if you asked me a few years ago, I would have never expected it. But damn, this game as well as another game in this video convinced me that this style can actually work wonders. Well, those as well as the Cortex animation that was uploaded to YouTube around the same time.
Hillary Clinton is a goddamn demon!
Anyway, the grapple mechanic made this game feel super quick. Collecting every gem and coin was way more addictive than I was expecting. And just the whole vibe of the game is just delightful. Give it a shot, you won't be disappointed. Though if you want disappointment, look no further than Pac-Man World Repack. I was so excited for this game, man, since I loved the original back in the day. And don't get me wrong, it's still a good time, but the overall charm was just kind of lost in translation. They replaced the voice acting with standard gibberish, and look, I love Banjo-Kazooie and Mario Odyssey, but the original's voice acting was so cheesy, and the way the family was captured didn't really hit as hard. Gameplay-wise, it still feels like the original with a bright, shiny coat of paint. Pac-Man not staying in place in the water kind of threw me off though, and the new flutter jump felt amazingly useless. Also, Pac-Man turning into a giant retro Pac-Man when you get a power pellet, it's kind of tacky if you ask me. The game didn't grab me as much as the original. Maybe it's the nostalgia or the PlayStation 5 wasn't the right fit, I don't know. I still think you should give it a shot if you've never played the original. Though, Namco and Now Pro, you could have gone the medieval route and made the original game a completion bonus or something. That would have been cute, but what do I know? Okay, September. Splatoon 3 and Freedom Planet 2 released, and I didn't get to them because I wasn't, and still currently not in the mood for Splatoon. And I still to this day haven't played the original Freedom Planet in full, so into the wish list it stays for a while. The big release for this month for many was The Last of Us Part 1. Why does this exist? To improve the character animation, since Naughty Dog got some of that nice motion capture technology from Insomniac when they were making Spider-Man. But they didn't remake the entire fucking game on PS5. Naughty Dog could have upgraded the PS4 re-release, but no! They needed something released by the time the HBO show came out. But what do I know? It's selling decently well to the point that Sony is doing the same for Horizon apparently. Yeah, fuck new games. Reject creativity, embrace familiarity. Now, speaking of which though, there was Return to Monkey Island. Completely forgot the game came out, and that kinda sucks because I was actually looking forward to it. And I was actually getting backlogged this year. Sorry, Mr. Ron Gilbert, I'll get to it one day, I promise. Jack Move was an RPG I saw in passing, and I do have it wishlisted. But I got like 3 or 4 RPGs to play through this year alone. God, there's way too many games to play this year. Anno Mutationem was another game I saw in passing, but unlike Jack Move, I actually played a little bit of it, since it was on sale on PSN. Oh wait, the game came out in March. This is for the Switch version. Yeah, I'm gonna talk about it here anyway. And I gotta say, this game is so pretty. I love the steampunk aesthetics, along with the 2D character animations. Every one of Anne's movements is so clean, and yes, I am absolutely gushing over their hair physics. It's just so hypnotizing, man. Don't judge me. Oh, speaking of characters, every character is just wonderful, with full voice acting for the main story progression, along with some side stuff. Anna's a bit monotone for my liking, though she isn't a boring character in the slightest. Everyone else is full of character, though, from Ayane's bubbly anime personality to the man in the sewers. I am not giving you context whatsoever. And the whole mystery at play is just engaging, and I can't wait to pop this back up and see more. Sure, the combat isn't complex, but it's a small issue for such a bold little title. Highly recommended, if not for the bartending minigame. This was more fun than I was expecting. Alright, next up is the big piece of hardware for the year, and while it didn't actually come out in September, it actually came out way earlier in the year. I was actually able to buy one in July and got my copy in this month, so we're gonna talk about it here. The Steam Deck. The moment I got this thing, I had 2 thoughts. 1, holy shit, this thing is massive, and 2, why does it keep logging me out? I don't have great internet, so I didn't realize it wasn't updating because it couldn't connect. So it may or may not be the Steam Deck's fault, but it was still a pain in the ass. Once I got the TV adapter though, I was able to fix that, and it's kinda what the Switch should have been, honestly. Like, I used this thing for the first few days despite the constant signing out, and I decided to play on a new Switch game I got, but I kinda grimaced after picking it back up for a couple of minutes. It was just so fucking small in comparison, and my hands now feel way too big for it. I even felt annoyed that I bought games for the Switch after I got the Steam Deck. I know not every game is perfect for the deck, but I think over time, I'll play on the Switch less and less, except if I'm in the mood for a Nintendo exclusive. And you could say, well, you can play Switch games on the Steam Deck, but not every game can be emulated yet, and the games that are able to be emulated are not exactly accessible for me at the moment. I tried to get Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition on my deck, since I recently learned that my physical copy was completely empty. Thank you, Nintendo. But downloading it took so long that it kept failing over and over that playing it was just off the table. Now, I did play some games thanks to EmuDeck, like Pikmin, and Pikmin. But I did get the Steam Deck mostly for Steam games, so you know, I'm gonna take full advantage of that. Last thing to say for this month, Cyberpunk Edge Runners came out this month, and it's on my watch list. I'll get to it one day. I know it's good, you don't have to tell me. Time to talk about Spooky Month, and you know what the scariest thing in the world is? Controversies! Just about every game this month was tied to some kind of controversy. Overwatch 2 literally replaced the original, became free to play, and had a completely insulting battle pass system. Not to mention the whole Activision Blizzard bullshit. That last bit kinda similar to Mario and Rabbids. Like, I'm not surprised Ubisoft is related with sexual misconduct, but it still left a bad taste in my mouth, and I didn't buy Sparks of Hope because of it. The entertainment world is a disgusting place, especially Bobby Kotick. Kick him out and take all of his money. We'll all live happy lives, Microsoft. Gotham Knights just sucked, which was not really surprising. Looked like shit the day it was announced and never improved since. And finally, there was the Helena Taylor boycott for Bayonetta 3. That was just completely wacky. Like, what the fuck was that? At least Plague Tale's Requiem was controversy-free, at least I think it was. Unfortunately, I had no time for a new horror game in October, especially a sequel to a game I didn't play. I did play a little bit of Signalis recently, only because I just knew it existed, and I would have absolutely loved to play it in October. It kind of reminded me of Ghost in the Shell meets Resident Evil, and I really got a kick out of it. That kick, speaking of, definitely reminded me of Silent Hill, the first one specifically. Yeah, I can safely say that this was the best horror game I played this year. Mostly because this was the only horror game I played this year, but hey, if it appeals to you, I highly recommend it. Okay, so apparently November gave us a blockbuster show on Netflix. That is the most ironic thing I have ever heard in my entire life. In terms of games, I didn't get to Harvestella. I heard it was really good, but the farming sim elements kinda turned me off from it. There was apparently a Ruby game this month. Haven't seen anything Ruby related in years, so ugh. Not even the prospect of it being a Metroidvania can get me interested. There was a Goat Simulator sequel. Cute. Who cares about Goat Simulator anymore? And then there was Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Look man, I know about the performance issues, and it is the big reason I haven't played them yet. But dude, as far as I know, it's kind of the only big issue, and everything else seems to be at the very least good. Yeah, the graphics aren't super impressive, but Arceus didn't have the great graphics, and that was a lot of fun. Just because it's not the prettiest game in the world does not mean it's the worst ever conceived. Graphics aren't the only important aspect of a game, you fucking chimps. Just learn to have simple fun for once. Unless the frame rate gets in the way, I can understand that at least. Anyway, I did play 2 games from this month, but let's get Sonic Frontiers out of the way. I was a little concerned with this one. Sonic games just haven't hit the same way for quite a while. Even Sonic Mania, as excellent as that is, was bogged down by heavy amounts of nostalgia. But the more I did see after the abysmal IGN showings got me pretty hopeful, and yeah, it's pretty good. I'm not going to pretend it's the best thing since the end of World War II, but a decent 7 out of 10 Sonic game is like an Oscar-winning event at this point. The open world is pretty fun to go through, with the combat being simple but effective. The collectibles were brilliant, being great connections for the story, which was actually pretty good too. Not great, but it gave the characters some pretty compelling interactions. The bosses were actually good for a change. Even if the boss designs are kinda strange and demonic, never been my cup of tea for Sonic designs. That in mind, not a fan of the cyberspace levels on an aesthetic level. Not just the rehashed themes, but just on a visual level. With the white noise and desaturated colors kinda muting everything out, it's just kind of ugly. The music was good though. I wasn't a fan of Force's music, but the Avatar music was legitimately good, and that's all I can say about the cyberspace music. The side quest and boss music, however, was on point. Like seriously, I'm just cutting grass. It doesn't have to slap this hard. Okay, I think that's enough Sonic. It's good, but you know what else is good? Lunistis. This was another game that had a demo on the Sage website, and it was so damn pretty. Just like Frugon, this game convinced me that PS1 graphics can be a timeless art style, and it complements the beautiful Japanese landscapes and beaches and everything. It's just wonderful. Just go play it. It's fun. It's really fun. Now let's talk movies. Strange World was certainly a movie made by Disney. All I got from the movie is that the world is alive and the main character was gay. Yep, it was a movie that certainly exists, alright. Pinocchio from Del Toro also exists, but it's actually a good-ass movie with personality and effort. I'm sorry, that was a little harsh. I'm sure the people at Disney tried their best with Strange World, but Pinocchio had just a lot of passion in the character designs, the world building. The fact that it's set in World War II was kind of perfect with the story of mortality. Pinocchio is actually a better character than any other version, including the other 2 shitty versions that were shat into existence this year. The cricket was also more interesting than Jiminy, and I love how he gets hurt over and over again. It's just amazing. And Geppetto's arc was also perfect, way better than the Disney version, who was just there with creepy clocks. I just like the version of Geppetto that is completely terrified and confused by a puppet that just comes to life instead of just saying, "Cool, you're alive, let's dance, this is so cool, right?" I absolutely adore this movie, please go check it out, but surprisingly, it was only my second favorite movie of the year. You'll know the best one soon. And finally we have December, usually a slow month alongside January, and this year was not too much of an exception. There were some games and movies that happened, and there was that Sonic Prime show that came out, and I'll be brutally honest, it wasn't very good. I liked the voice acting for every character, and the characters were pretty decent. Well, except for Knuckles. His voice was a little too low and quiet, and the characterization was just kinda boring. Except for his pirate persona, that was the only exception. The multiple Eggmans weren't also that entertaining, which docks 3 points right there. The dialogue and pacing was just too quick and aimless, and I don't know, the centerpiece of the one palm tree was just kinda tacky. I'm with Sonic there. The only time I would be, because Sonic was more of a dismissive dumbass this time, which made him pretty unlikable at a lot of points. That said, I'm not a fan of any of the alternate dimensions. The dystopian world in Jungle felt uninspired, and the pirate world felt like filler until the last few minutes, when things got a little more interesting. However, the fact that they split the season in half may have also contributed to the show just being kinda mediocre. Maybe the second half will fix everything, but I'm not gonna count on it. At least Big was part of the main cast, which was fun, though I wish there was a little bit more character variety than 7 plus a random bird. Anyway, I did hear about Callisto Protocol and High on Life, but the former's proclaimed mediocrity and issues turned me off from actually trying it out. And High on Life sounded obnoxious and lame, so no. Also, I heard about the Cum Bucket, and I'm not sure what the context is, but I refuse to know. One game I got really invested in, though, was Chained Echoes, an RPG that gave me some Final Fantasy VI and Chrono Trigger vibes, and that was enough for me to get interested. The overall world was engaging, with the theme of higher powers wanting war being increasingly effective. But it's not without its charm. The carnival with Sir Vector was just charming as hell, and the shenanigans with Sierra, finding ways to steal without getting caught, was twistingly entertaining. These two portions were definitely where the Chrono Trigger vibes hit. When the main conflict hit, that's where I was reminded of Final Fantasy VI the most, and I'm pretty sure playing further will continue sharing those vibes. But that's not to say it's a bad thing. I wanted to play a hell of a lot more and see where everything was going. And the battle system was actually pretty interesting, giving you the option to eventually switch characters, and that actually being tied to one of the big components of battling was actually pretty cool. You also got healed after every battle, which was interesting to say the least, but it still got its fair share of challenge, so I didn't mind too much. Certainly give it a shot if you like the really classic feeling RPGs. Now onto the movies, which there were 2 big ones, and I only went to see one of them, and we're gonna play a fun 10-second game. Avatar vs. Puss in Boots. Which movie did Jayson watch to end 2022 with? Technically, I actually watched it in January, but let's pretend I ended 2022 with it. Okay, time's up. I know that wasn't 10 seconds, but it was certainly not Avatar Way of the Water. I absolutely despised the first movie when I watched it in high school, so I wanted nothing to do with the sequel. But Puss in Boots: The Last Wish was a movie I wasn't too excited for at first. But then the reviews hit, and I gotta tell you, man, this could be my favorite DreamWorks movie. I love just about everything about this goddamn movie, from the extremely fluent and energetic animation to Puss's fight with mortality and suffering through the stress and fear from it, dealing with Kitty Softpaws and Purito, the latter being such an optimistic foil to Boots and Kitty. And Death is such a fantastic, awesome antagonist. He's just really sick of this little asshole just not taking life seriously. And he wants to just end his last life because he's just gonna throw it away anyways, so just get it done. And the way he stalks Puss is just anxiety-inducing, and I fucking love it. Every time this guy shows up, it's the best part of the movie. I absolutely love this guy. The actual villain, Big Jack Horner, is such a petty gay dickweed, and he just revels in his dark villainy. And even as the cricket on his shoulder just gets increasingly mortified, the more his evil side just shows up. It's just absolutely incredible. Goldilocks was another antagonist that had a really interesting arc, with one of her scenes being one of the 4 times I legit cried in the theater. Granted, one of the other ones was the new DreamWorks intro, so that doesn't really count, I guess. Just watch the movie. Watch it twice. Watch it 9 times. I don't care. This movie is nearly perfect. My only gripe with the movie is that they didn't squish the crickets. I wanted to see the cricket go squish. And that was 2022. Overall, I really like the variety this year gave us. And the fact that it pretty much started with one of the best video games I've ever played, and practically ended with one of the best animated movies I've ever watched, I can get away with saying that it was a pretty damn good year for entertainment. As for my personal life, you may not be wondering, my mental state was a lot better compared to 2021, which was one of the worst years I've ever had to deal with. I went to therapy that was just about 5 years overdue in 2021, and I can't say it'll be the last time I ever go to therapy, but that first time definitely helped me considerably. On the video side of things, I think I did decently. The last 2 videos of the year were some of my most viewed videos to date, and they seem to be well received, so I'm super happy about that. They were certainly some of my favorites. The Metroid video from February was another one of my favorites, though I'm a little disappointed that it wasn't too popular in comparison. Same with the mental health game video. That was one of the best videos I've ever made, and people just didn't click with it, so I guess a part 2 won't be too likely in the future. The Pokemon video, though, worst one of the year by far. I did not like the structure I stuck with, and I think if I do another Pokemon video, I'd have to try another format. Even though it was also the worst performing video since the rebrand, so a new Pokemon video is probably not happening anyway. The market will decide indeed. Either way, I think it was a net positive, and I hope 2023 is more or less the same, with a few new ideas in the mix. I love doing these retrospective videos, but I got a lot of other ideas in the docket. But I'll leave those as a mystery for now. Anyway, I think that's all I have to say about 2022. Let's hope that 2023 is even more spectacular! Hey, thank you so much for watching the video! You know, when I was looking through all 5 of the videos from last year, I discovered that I was very inconsistent with the border, which was very interesting. I know I was being very indecisive about it. Like, I actually thought I got rid of it, like, around the time I made the Pokemon video, because I know I didn't put it on that one, but it's very interesting. I don't know if I'm gonna get rid of it. Like, obviously it was just a mimic of Scott the Wozz's border, and I tried to make it my own thing, and I feel like I've succeeded in it, but definitely felt self-conscious about it throughout the years, so thought that was interesting.